What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video we are talking about my thoughts on the ExileCon 3.22 and PoE 2 reveals that we got yesterday. So let's just dive right in, and let's start with the good stuff. I am so excited about 3.22. It looks awesome. The league mechanic is something that I've never really done before, the auto battler style. I've never played a game like that, but it looks like a lot of fun and it looks incredibly rewarding. We won't know until we get to play it, but for now it looks rewarding, so we're just gonna stick with that. Sanctum is back, and it actually looks really cool. They're implementing it in a way where you can trade the floor in its entirety. That means if it's got maybe 3 divines on it, you can trade it to somebody else who's got a really good build for it if maybe you dropped to a low amount of resolve or something, and still get value out of it. So it being tradable means that you don't have to run it if you don't want to, but it also means you can specialize in Sanctum and you can buy floors that you know you can run and make a ton of currency. You guys know I love making specialized characters, so I will almost certainly be making a Sanctum specific character this league. And that got more interesting because now defenses on your character, armor, evasion, and energy shield, impact the way that you interact with Sanctum. Before, they did nothing, but now they're useful. So building a character that has high defenses of all 3 is almost certainly going to be the way to go, and I'm really excited to learn about all the different ways that the defenses interact with the Sanctum floors. There's also going to be a lot more room variety to Sanctum. They have changed a lot of the mods, and now you have to do the final boss phase of Lycia in order to get the rewards, which I really like. I think the final boss phase is more challenging, it's more interesting, and having to do that to get the rewards on the final floor, I think is probably the way to go. Relics have been changed around, a lot of new mods. It's going to be a new learning experience. Really, it's going to be like Sanctum 2.0 for people who really like that content. And then lastly, I think this means that we're getting Sanctum uniques back. So Original Sin, etc. A lot of builds were enabled during that league by the very unique uniques that were released with Sanctum League. So I'm super excited to get those back with the modern state of the game and whatever new items that we get alongside of 3.22. All right, next, Ascendancy reworks. Let's start with the Guardian. So the first thing I saw when they put the Guardian up on the screen was Harmony of Purpose, which is for linked skills. And I know that they really want to push linked skills, but boy, do linked skills not look like any fun. Especially the new, I think it's Frigid Cold or something, the link skill that basically lets you cold clothesline enemies by you and your partner running side by side and just running through the enemies. I don't know if that's actually going to be any good or not. I would imagine it's not. But link skills are kind of a meme, in my opinion, unless you're playing in a duo, in which case they're very strong, but most people don't do that. Next, we have Unwavering Faith. This looks pretty cool. I think this is going to be impacted by aura effect because it makes the auras grant the life recovery, mana, and ES recovery. So if that's affected by aura effect, this could be very strong for a mana stacker. So if Hierophant wants to steal the Unwavering Faith and then get a ton of mana recovery by running, you know, auras on your life pool, etc., this could be a very strong node. Radiant Faith is relatively unchanged. You get armor and ES based on how much you're reserving of your life and mana. Time of Need, I don't really like things like the first part, which is every 4 seconds you remove curses and ailments. You can't rely on this to remove ailments, which means you still have to get ailment immunity, and it just becomes a curse removal every 4 seconds, which is also not that good. So Time of Need to me is useless. I would never use this outside of just using that regen for like a Kaum's Spirit build, which I don't know if I see a Guardian using Kaum's Spirit very often, but if you do, then you could use that node. Radiant Cascade and Unwavering Crusade are nodes that grant new minions that we don't know anything about yet, so I can't speak to them, but I'm excited to see what they do. The idea of a specific minion for Guardian seems like a pretty cool idea. I'm sure people will have stronger opinions on that are minion fans, but I think it's a cool thing to have in the game. And lastly, my favorite node on the entire Guardian Ascendancy is Bastion of Hope. If you've attacked recently, you get 25% chance to block attack damage, and if you've cast a spell recently, you get 25% chance to block spell damage. This also applies to your allies, so party members, minions, etc. This is going to be trivial to keep up, as long as you're using a movement skill. So every 4 seconds, if you are a spellcaster, you use shield charge and you will have that attack block up the whole time. If you are an attack-based build, you can use Flame Dash or Frost Blink once every 4 seconds, and you'll have the spell block up. It is a little bit of maintenance, but this is so much defense. Getting 25-25 block is the equivalent of 2 Tempest Shields. It's essentially the equivalent of a shield and a half worth of block. This is super strong. It's going to make it very easy for Guardians to build into block and get to max block. RIP Gladiator even further. If you're going to play a block build, you're probably going to want to play either Necro or Guardian. On to the Chieftain. I will admit that I was baited by Chieftain at the beginning. When I first saw Valakos Storm's Embrace, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the first note I saw. This is so awesome. You're going to be able to throw Purity of Fire onto a build and have 80 max res instantly. And you're very easily going to be able to make 90 max res builds with Valakos Storm's Embrace. Super hyped. And then I kind of did a little bit of copium going around the rest of the tree saying, oh, this could be good for this could be good for that. But then I watched Captain Lance's video this morning. Shout out to Captain Lance. I will link that video down in the description below. Boy, the rest of this stuff stinks. And let's talk about each one. So Salio Cleansing Water ends up being a small chunk of resistances, which if you're building around max res, you tend to be getting a lot of res, whether you're using flasks or whatever it is. If you're building around max res, usually getting flat resistances is not a huge problem. And taking an entire Ascendancy node for resist doesn't feel that good. Unaffected by Ignite is okay, but what we lose here from the old Tassalio is 20% Fizz to Fire, which is massive. That's like 2 mods on a helmet, and 20% life recovery rate. Life recovery rate affects your regen, your leech, all that stuff, and makes you recover more total. It's a more multiplier. Losing both of those things and just getting a little bit more resists, not good. And you have to take this if you want to take Valakos, unless you're going to steal Valako, which that's going to be the most expensive Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame on the Chieftain by a lot. So not great there. Arohangui, not that exciting. It's a very strong decoy totem effectively. That gives you a little bit of recoup, but not a ton of recoup. 10% is trivial to get. It's less than, it's like a tier 3 ring modifier. And then your totem's regen life is nice to keep them alive, but it's just not that powerful. Namahu's Flame is advanced. I did not personally do a review on this, but Captain Lance did look around the tree, and essentially what he found is similar to that old jewel that used to do this exact same thing. It's just not very good. Now let's get to the worst part. I was initially baited into thinking this was okay. Tahoa Forest Strength was not changed, except to add that you can use it with strike skills, which I don't know why you'd ever want to use this with a strike skill. Strike skills tend to be fast attacking skills, and this only goes off, I think it's once every second or second and a half. There's a cooldown on Tahoa's Chosen. So you're probably not going to want to use it with strike skills. So, okay, let's say we use it with a slam skill. What comes after that? Tukohama War Herald. You have level 30 Ancestral Call, which gives 2 additional strikes and 10% more damage. That's fine if you're playing a strike skill, but if you're playing a strike skill, Tahoa is not very good, and you have to take that to get to Tukohama. Then you have Fist of War, which doesn't work with Ancestral Call. There are no slam strike skills in the game. You just have Fist of War, which is one of the worst supports in the entire game. I've never found a good use for it. The cooldown is just simply too long. 1.8 seconds is the base cooldown at level 20. And anytime that you have to wait 2 seconds to attack again, in the modern state of Path of Exile, it's going to feel bad. So the only way I can see this working is if you have a very, very big AoE slam skill that is going to clear the entire screen guaranteed. Then taking these 2 points makes sense. because you'll clear the entire screen and then you can move on, and it'll take you 2 seconds maybe to get to the next full screen of enemies. You can get in the middle of them and clear the whole screen again. That potentially could feel good. I probably will mess around with this at some point this league, but boy, that is some copium. You guys know that if I'm saying I'll try to mess around with it, it's probably not going to be meta, and it's probably not very strong. So that's not great. And then lastly, Ramako's Sun's Light. Nearby enemies have no fire resistance against damage over time while you are stationary. This is just simply not that good. Getting an enemy to 0 fire res is not that difficult. This is like a worse version of the Inquisitor mod that makes it so you ignore enemies' resistances. But in this, it's only fire and you have to be stationary. And it's only against damage over time. It's so specific. It's basically... if you're a Righteous Fire build that's using a Scorching Ray, then you don't have to use Flammability and Scorch, which you were probably already using anyway. So, Ramako Sun's Light, terrible. So the conclusion that I have on Chieftain is that Volico Storm's Embrace is going to be pretty awesome. But that's about it. Let's talk about the support skills. There's one in mind that I am very, very excited about. I have no idea what the damage is going to look like, but if you can get the damage high enough, this is going to be awesome. So the support skill is called Corrupting Cry. War cries and exerted attacks inflict corrupting blood. This means your war cries now do damage. What makes this so exciting is war cries have massive inbuilt area of effect. So to test and showcase this, we have Enduring Cry and Ice Crash. We have nothing else. We have no tree. This is just going to be baseline area of effect for both. So this is the base radius on Ice Crash. As you can see, it's 26, and you can see the green circle around you. That is the radius of an Ice Crash with nothing else added to it. Not very good. Ice Crash tends to have a problem with AoE unless you really, really put effort into it. But it is a typical melee skill. Like, it's not massive, massive AoE. Now, let's go look at Enduring Cry's base radius. It is 60. With no investment in AoE, this is what your skill looks like. If you were to get some area of effect on this, you would trivially cover the entire screen, which means if you can get enough damage from your corrupting blood from your cry, you're going to be able to clear entire screens with war cries and then have maybe a single target set up for the rare mobs and the unique mobs that you have to fight. This sounds like it could be a super, super fun playstyle. You get the cooldown pretty low on your war cry, and maybe every second or two, it just shouts and the entire screen blows up. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to mess around with this very early in the league. Now, there is some bad news on the front of the support skills. We have returning projectile support. Projectiles return to you, piercing all targets, but dealing 70% less damage. Now, this is a level 1 gem. We don't know what the 20 will look like. It could be 50 or 60% less damage, which means you'll get a good amount of bonus damage on the return. But what this tells me is Vengeance Cascade is getting gutted. Because if they don't gut Vengeance Cascade, this support would be useless. If you could just use a regular support in your 6th slot and use Vengeance Cascade as your anoint, why would you ever want to use a support on it? The reality is returning projectiles are not guaranteed to hit the target, so even if it gives you 50% more damage on the returning projectile, if it's not hitting, it's not doing any damage. So Vengeance Cascade as is far superior to this. So this tells me that Vengeance Cascade is probably going to be either removed or nerfed pretty bad. I had some hopes that they were going to keep it for at least another league so I could mess around with some more builds with it, but alas, I think that's the end. We have Flame Word, which makes your totems shoot mortars if they're hit, which sounds like it synergizes with the taunt of Chieftain, but at the end of the day, a totem reflect build doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Unless the damage of this is insane, I don't think this is going to feel good to use, so it'll probably just end up being a meme, but it's an interesting idea. Then we have the support that makes you deal chaos damage based on the sacrificed life, which effectively is kind of a forbidden right for all skills situation. This is interesting because there are some synergies with sacrificing life, so we'll see what we can do with this and how much actual damage is going to give, but this might be a really good support. And lastly, the last one I want to talk about is Locust Mine, which is the bow and wand mine, which fires projectiles in an arc. This looks super cool, Playing, you know, tornado shot mines and things like that will probably be a lot of fun. And I think there's some serious potential for massive, massive damage. So I look forward to trying this out. So those are my thoughts on 3.2.2. I have a ton more. I might make another video detailing more of my thoughts, but for now, that's the end of the 3.2.2 talk. Let's briefly talk about PoE 2. I'm going to hold my thoughts on PoE 2 for at least a year, because it looks like PoE 2 is 2 years away. We got a release date for the beta, which is 1 year from now. And what that tells me is this game is so far from done that it's not even really worth judging the gameplay at all. What we saw is the slowest game that PoE has ever presented us. Poor Zizarin and Mathel and others who tested this on stage were forced to use a level 4 axe in Act 4 and fight against mobs that were regenning back to full life before they could even do their second hit of damage. I think GGG made a little bit of a mistake in over-tuning the mobs and under-tuning the characters. You basically had like bad magic items that you could play with for these showcases, and what it made the game look like is one that was just going to be impossible to play. I think the reality is it won't look anything like that when it comes out, because every single time GGG has given us a build showcase or a showcase of new leagues, they showcase it as if it's incredibly slow. And people freak out and they say, oh my God, PoE's slow now, this is going to be terrible. And that's never the case. It's always the case that they are showcasing it as slow as possible so you can get an idea for the feel of the skill and what the arena looks like. But I think they maybe went a little bit too far in showcasing the slowest version that they could have possibly made. I think they might have turned a lot of people off from PoE 2. Luckily, there are 2 years left to bring those people back in. A couple of other thoughts. The fact that it seems like just about every skill they've showcased is some sort of combo. You want to use a skill to freeze the enemy and then Glacial Cascade to get extra damage. You want to use a skill that lowers their armor and then a different skill to do damage to them. It feels like they're really pushing combos in PoE 2, and the general vibe of the people that I've talked to is, I just want to blast, I want to zoom, and I don't want to press 6 buttons to kill 6 monsters. So we'll see. I'm going to reserve judgment on that as well, because I think these combos are very cool, and they might feel really good to use. And it might not be that PoE 2 is just about combo skills. There may be plenty of Righteous Fire style builds and auto bombers. All of that stuff is still going to exist, but they're showcasing the coolest new stuff that they've come up with. So I wouldn't worry too much about that either. Next, let's talk about the double weapon swap, double passive tree. This looks like an absolute nightmare for new players. I do not envy a new player trying to figure out how to make a build in PoE 2. As a content creator, I think this is probably the best job security that I've ever gotten. It is going to be so complex to make a good build with 5 or 6 skills that requires multiple weapons and multiple trees that I really think this is going to be a struggle for new players. And I think that's a big problem, because one of the most important things about PoE 2 and the survivability of this game is bringing new players in. So I hope that there's just a very good tutorial system that helps players get integrated into the game and it make it a little bit easier to figure out how to play. Lastly, I want to talk about the movement skills in PoE 2. So there's this dodge that's on spacebar that is free to use. It's unlimited. It sounds like there's going to be ways that we can scale it on the passive tree. That's what Rory was saying. But Jonathan hinted that movement skills aren't going to be necessary in PoE 2 because of this dodge mechanic. And the dodge mechanic doesn't make you move very far, and it looks a little slow. So if all of our movement skills are gone and there's built-in movement skills to your attacks, I'm not sure it's going to feel that good to play. So I am a little bit concerned that they're going to slow the game down by just taking movement skills out. Now, my prediction was that they were going to put cooldowns on all the movement skills, but it sounds like they might just be getting rid of them. Anyway, those are my initial thoughts after day 1 of ExileCon. I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to be streaming again today, ExileCon Day 2. We're doing some more League Start testing. Lots of content coming to the channel before 3.22. So stick around, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0___. I will see you over there. And as always,